Welcome to the Bar Hacks Podcast. Expert tips and strategies to help you navigate your bar, restaurant, or hospitality business towards sustainable success. Now, here's your host, Doug Radke, the president of KRG Hospitality, the international brand ambassador for Barventory, and the author of the book, Bar Hacks.
Welcome to the Bar Hacks Podcast. My name is Doug Radke, and I have another exciting guest with me today, someone who is actually the first person in Canada to hold both a beer judge certification while being a certified Cicerone. What does that even mean? It means he knows a lot about beer, so much so that he started a website called betterbeer.com, which is a draft quality certification program and an amazing resource for bar and restaurant operators. So who is my guest? None other than Steve Riley, a good friend of mine and a contributor to our helpformyrestaurant.com website that is full of content to help operators through this pandemic. If you haven't checked out that site, please do so. It is 100% free. Steve, welcome to the show.
Awesome. Thanks, Doug. Thanks for having me.
No problem. So I'm a little envious. You get to talk, a little bit about beer all day long, which must be pretty exciting.
Yeah, it's good. It's beer o'clock right now in the industry. That's for sure.
That's for sure. So I have to ask, and I'm sure our listeners are curious, what got you into the niche aspect of the food and beverage industry, leading to the development of betterbeer.com? Maybe walk us through that process, if you don't mind.
Sure, yeah. I was in the restaurant business for probably about, must have been about a dozen years. I worked with a couple different chains and traveled around and opened up restaurants, and it was great. I had a blast. Kind of midlife crisis at 30, and just kind of got tired of the hours, but I wanted to stay in the industry because I love the industry. So I started teaching and doing some consulting, and then somebody from Molson Coors actually asked me to do some beer training for bar staff. So that's how it all started. And that was, my goodness, that was like 2001, I think. So got into that, learned more about drafts, started a draft service company in 2005, sold that in 2010. Started Better Beer in 2009, and yeah, we've been running this. We're just heading into our 11th year now with Better Beer.
Awesome, yeah, that's the same year that we started our company as well. So, so if somebody goes to betterbeer.com, what should they expect, and how can you help them or their team move forward?
We're really a unique company. A lot of people think that we clean lines and we service equipment and sell equipment, which we don't. Basically, we do three things, and all three involve improving quality, profitability, and sales with draft beer. So we're only focused on draft. The first one is a glass cleaning kit. Dirty beer glass is one of the biggest problems in the industry. Poor head retention, the carbonation levels are off, beer doesn't taste right, overfills, which kills profitability. So we sell a glass cleaning kit. We see that more in Canada than the US. The US tends to have more 3-compartment sinks. So our product really isn't relevant for those folks, but people in Canada have mechanical glass washing. So this kit supplements that. Online draft training. One thing I noticed when I was in the industry, we'd spend hours teaching staff about the menu, right? How many wings in a pound and where the fish comes from and the wine and scotch and everything. But when it came to draft, it was like, hey, do you know how to pour a beer? And we'd say, yeah. And, okay, so show me in 10 seconds, 20 seconds tops. And we'd move on, even though it represented the hundred thousands in revenues. So we've got draft training. Teaches them proper pour, changing kegs, troubleshooting, how to sell beer, everything that they need to know about draft. And then we've got level 2, which is more for key holders, managers. It's much more technical. And then the third piece is our audits. So we've designed the industry's only brewery neutral draft quality assurance audit. So we'll come in, kind of think of us kind of like the health board for draft beer, except we're much more fun. Right. And we'll come in, check everything from keg to glass, give them a score out of 100, and give them a list of recommendations and to-dos, how they can improve their quality. And then over the course of a few months, try to see that number get higher and higher, which is improving, again, profitability and quality.
Nice.
Yeah.
So it's getting into, I guess, what's going on currently. Obviously, you're not located too far from me. You're only a couple hours away, so I kind of know what's happening in your area, and that's something I'm trying to get a grasp of what's happening and all the different people that come on this show, what's going on in the area. But what are your thoughts, on the current views or what's happening in the industry right now with this pandemic?
Yeah, it's tough, right? It really is, and I think we're going to lose especially the longer this goes on, the tougher it's going to be for a lot of independents, especially. Chains have a little bit deeper pockets, but what I'm noticing, and I'm talking to people like every day, just I'm sure you are too, right?
Right.
Those that are winning with takeout, alcohol delivery as well with takeout. Somebody sent me a takeout order from their restaurant the other day. Just captured a screenshot of their phone. It was like a kid's chicken fingers for like $4,
Right.
and then like 6 Heinekens, a bunch of Coors Lights, Margaret. Like it's, so I think people are using it for that. So those are the people that are winning. And then we've got a client actually. He's got a restaurant at 12 Brewery here in Whitby. I'll call him out. John Allen, smart guy. He turned his restaurant into a market. Right, like he's getting all these access to all these great vendors and who are bringing in produce and chicken and everything. So he flipped it and set up his website now, and he's got a market. And we tried it. Like we ordered on a Monday morning, I think, and got it delivered on Wednesday because the lineups of grocery stores are crazy. So, yeah, so great quality, and it was really well done. So that's why I see people surviving that way. But the people who aren't doing takeout, man, I have no idea what they're going to do.
Right. Yeah, I think that's the key word lately is pivot. I'm kind of getting tired of that word myself. I see it and hear it all day long, every day right now. But it is, you have to be able to pivot right now for sure. So what's keeping that in mind? What are maybe some 2 to 3 short-term or long-term changes that you see, the bar and restaurant industry may be going through over the next, 12 months, maybe? What are your personal thoughts on that?
So short-term draft, I think, and I'll keep it draft focused because that's our playhouse. But draft, I think that there's going to be some challenges, and doesn't matter where you are. Passcode beer and kegs. Right? It's got a shelf life. It's sitting there. You just can't reopen and just start selling draft. The way people close down their systems is going to impact when it comes time to doing deliveries. When you get the green light, yeah, you get a truck with 2 guys, and normally they go to restaurant A and they take maybe 8 empty kegs and drop off 5 full ones or whatever, and they go to the next one. Now they're going to be going around, picking up 25 empty or full kegs and dropping off 25 other full kegs, new kegs. And, so that's going to slow the process down where you can do 10 drops a day now maybe you're down to 5. So I think it's going to be a real struggle with people, making sure they have fresh beer, making sure they have enough of it. And in your podcast, the first episode you had where you talked about streamlining menus, right? They're going to have to do that. You can't go from, you can't all of a sudden open up and have 40 lines and only 60 seats. You can't. So I think I'm working on a piece now that, if you only have 6 taps, what are they, right? Like a light lager, an import, so I'm building that out now. Long term, man, I have no idea what's going to happen long term.
Yeah, we're all in that same boat, right? We're trying to figure it out. We've obviously never been through this, so it's just trying to figure out what those next steps are going to potentially look like. I'm getting some of that insight from the government. It sounds like they're going to be introducing the restaurants, at least from the U.S. anyways. Right now, they're starting to look at doing it in phases. It's like a 3-phase process, and I'm assuming it's going to be very similar here in Canada as well. And the bars are kind of that second, third phase, just because of the close proximities that customers are going to be sitting at, right? So from a guest point of view, do you foresee any changes in consumer behavior in bars and restaurants, and maybe how guests interact with beer and bartenders specifically? Do you think that's going to change in the future?
Yeah, you know what? I think that's my biggest fear, Doug, is that they switch the model from full service to almost like a quick service, which is going to kill so many aspects of the restaurant industry and the bar business where, because let's be honest, it's easy to do. You could order through an app and go and pick it up at the bar, and that really limits that interaction. but that takes away everything, all the reasons why you go to a full service restaurant or a bar, right? Like you want that interaction. So I don't know I think people are going to be a little bit more hesitant, and they're going to be more aware of how they handle things. I think on the restaurant and the bar side, the operator side, cleanliness is going to be godliness, right? It's going to be like, if you walk in and it doesn't smell like bleach, it's going to be a problem now where it didn't before. But yeah, it's things are going to be different. That's for sure.
Absolutely. So I know we mentioned this within our helpfrommyrestaurant.com resources, and I know it's up on your website, but what can bars and restaurants do now in terms of their draft beer systems? Like, what are the best practices to go through or consider when they need to shut down those taps, for a period of time?
So shutting them down, there's a couple ways to do that. They can either completely shut down, or they can keep the system up, keep cleaning the system, and then when they're ready, they can just open. So we're kind of past that point, I think now. Most 80-90% of people did a full shutdown, which is going to be a challenge when we reopen again, because draft service techs can only get to so many accounts.
Right.
Right now, in the middle of this, we just launched a keg sell-by, calculating keg sell-by spreadsheet. It's on our site. You go to betterbeer.com, click on COVID-19, and you can register and then get access to it. The reason we ask you to register is so that we can send you updates and anything changes that happen to it. But it's a spreadsheet where you do a quick inventory of your beer fridge and plug in all the dates on the kegs into the spreadsheet, and it use the shelf life. And so some of them are 60 days, some of them are 75 days, and it spits out and it tells you, where those kegs are now, if they're considered fresh or not, or pass code, and where it'll be in 15 days, 30 days, 45 days, 60 days. So that way you can look at it and say, okay, well, if we're opening on July 1st, these kegs are going to be pass code, these ones will be in code, and it kind of gives you an idea of where you're going to be when you can reopen, which is going to be very helpful. It also gives you a good order sheet as well. And then working on, like I say, that the bar is now open guide, where, what you need to do to get your bar so you're pouring great quality pints again.
Nice. So let's just say somebody's listening to this after the pandemic and something else, happens and they need to shut down. Like, what is that minimum number of days that they can go by without having to shut down or go through these shutdown procedures for their beer system? Is there a minimum day range that you would kind of recommend?
Yeah, it depends on the system, right? So if you're using, there's basically three types of gas systems. So there's this urban legend in the industry, and it's been on for years, and I try to debunk it every time I can, but it's the Carol Baskin of for draft, I tell you. People say, well, once you tap a keg, it's only good for 10 days or 5 days or whatever it is. Right. It depends on the gas system. So if you're using an air compressor, like 8 hours, it's done. That keg's shot. If you're using cylinders of beer gas, Guinness gas we call it, it's good for maybe about 8 to 10. You could probably push 12, 14 days tops. So 2 weeks at the most. But if you're using a blender generator, which is kind of like the Cadillac system where it takes 100% CO2, 100% nitrogen, blends it together, the keg will last as long tapped as the shelf life of the beer. So the gas doesn't affect the beer in any way. So if you're using a blender generator, you're cleaning your lines on the regular frequency that you should be, you can just stay open. And we've got a few clients that did that, because the benefit to this is that when you do reopen, you just go in, you put the handles down, and you just start pouring beer, right? Like it's that easy. If you shut down, that's option B. You can do a complete shutdown. You got to clean the system, shut the deck down, and your draft service tech has to do all this because it's complicated. Your gas system, everything, shut everything down. You got to reboot it all when you reopen again, and that takes time, takes a draft service tech. You're going to have downtime when you reopen. Right. So it's a real challenge. But yeah, if I had to do it, if I owned a bar, I would do option A and just keep it up, keep it clean, just keep running fresh beer through it, and just wait until you can go, and then you're right out of the gate.
Nice. So I know you touched base on the best before, or this keg sell by dates. Can you just touch base a little bit more on that? Just like
yeah, for sure. So we've got a page on our website that lists all the shelf life for all the different brands. It's Canadian, so I'm working on the US one right now. For the most part, they're very similar. But, big brewery like Molson Coors, 60 days, ABIs, 75, Bud, even though it falls in ABI, is only 60. Some of our Canadian breweries like Muskoka and Steam Whistle are on there. So we've got a whole list of them. So you can go there and you can see where the date is printed. If it's a kegged on date or a best before date, like Guinness and Heineken have a best before date. So it tells you where everything is, and it just helps you understand, how to read them, because they're all in a code, and it just doesn't say sell by this date for the most part. So that's on our site, and then the spreadsheet really helps as well.
Nice. So what are your thoughts on technology or the future of beer within the bar space? Let's stick current right now. Like, what are your thoughts on beer delivery within the restaurant and bar space? Do you think that's something that should continue post-pandemic, or just for this period of time that we're going through right now?
No, I think it's going to stick around. It's going to be tough for the government to pull that away, because bars and restaurants, really, that's how they survive. That's how they're surviving now. And it's really going to help in the long term. And, again, Canada, it just gets away from that grocery store piece in Ontario. I know it's very specific, but I think it's going to stick around. And I think technology wise, what we're going to see, our brand, a growler, and you think about hockey teams or sport teams, football teams, right? Like, you get a collection with different growlers, the brewery brands them. The technology needs to come in where you can get it from the tap into the growler. There's tech that exists now where it's a long stainless steel tube that attaches to the faucet. So you put the growler in, and it kind of fills from the bottom to the top, like the turbo tap. I don't know if you remember that from years back. So it's kind of like that for growlers, but it needs to be stainless steel. You need to be able to take it on and off, so you can pour that brand into a pint glass and then pour it into a growler back and forth. So yeah, I think that is going to change. I think, and for draft industry, I think that's going to be great, because everything about draft is about volume. It's about selling as much as you can and making a decent profit off it.
So one area that I've been a little bit of a fan of lately is the self-serve beer systems. I know they're not fully regulated in certain parts of Canada yet, but they are pretty much throughout the US. And if they're really executed properly with, educational pieces and staff there, and obviously the security measures, I think it can be done well. It's become fairly popular, but time's going to really tell if guests are going to prefer, whether a pint should be poured from a bartender now or a machine moving forward, especially post-pandemic. Like, what are your thoughts on self-serve beer and those types of systems, and what should maybe operators keep in mind if they're thinking of going that route?
I think that I've spent some time in Denver. There was one in Denver probably 4 years ago or 5 years ago. I can't remember the name of it, but it was just being installed, and he had like 60 taps, right? It was all the little key fob thing. And I spent, half a day there when they were doing the install and helping out with Joe, who was the guy who was doing the install. So I think they're great. I think it gets people excited about draft, and it gets them more involved and hands-on, which is great for everybody. I think sometimes people look at draft as, I'll just have a draft, and it's, they look at it like they did in the 70s, where it was just a commodity and it was bottom of the barrel kind of thing. So I think you get people more involved, and they're tasting and they're understanding the system more. And really, it's once you learn how to pour a pint, it's not hard, especially if the system's installed properly and it doesn't foam. It's just about how you hold the glass. I think you're right. Having a staff member there to kind of coach, maybe some videos will really help. But it's the thing that I love most about those is you're charged by the ounce. So if you just want to take a few ounces of this IPA, maybe I really enjoy it, I'll take a pint, or maybe I don't and I'll try something else. It's a great way to get trial and get people to try new brands and different brands. So if I'm a brewer, it's fantastic.
Yeah, I think it's a very interactive experience, which is, I think, something that's going to have to be, part of a marketing plan moving forward post-pandemic to get people back in the doors, enhancing that experience. And I also think those beer walls and self-serve beer really help alleviate some of the pressure off the bartenders as well, because now they can also concentrate, on cocktails and engaging with the customers at the bar, instead of going back and forth and pouring those pints of beer. So before we start wrapping up, like, what are your top beer tips for restaurant bar operators? What are some must do's and maybe some of your top don't do's, things that make you go crazy when you walk into a bar?
When the faucet hits the glass, that's a big no-no. And you see bartenders all the time, right? The double fist up the trigger finger and then the bartender bounce, right? And just that drives me crazy. So the faucet should never touch the glass. And it's one of these things that's so strange. We see them everywhere in Canada and not so much in the States. But the glass rinsers, those are fantastic. You just give the glass a quick little rinse. Right. It's just cold tap water, where they really are worth their weight in gold is, if you freeze glasses or you chill glasses, if you take glasses right out of the glass washer, it gets rid of that sanitizer on the inside. It just freshens it up. Those are great. I would always put 2 of those in every bar. One of the insider tips that we always talk about with our clients is people talk about the first pour of the day, and sometimes it's really foamy. Right. Well, the reason it's foamy is that the beer there's no beer in the faucet over the course of the night. So as you're closed, the faucet kind of warms up a little bit. It doesn't get hot or, but it's not room temperature, but it's certainly not cold. So when the bartender turns the tap on for that first pour of the day, you got cold beer, so 38 Fahrenheit, 3 Celsius, hits, we'll call it, 55 degree Fahrenheit or 10, 12 Celsius faucet, warms up. So the first ounce is foam. Beer comes out of the faucet at 2 ounces a second. So second ounce is foam. Third ounce is kind of liquid and foam. Fourth ounce is liquid. So that takes 2 seconds, right? So you turn tap on, 1, 2, shut it off. Now we've got 4 ounces of foam in the glass. Can't layer liquid on top of foam. So they put it down on the spill tray. They grab a new glass. They start pouring and it pours great. So first pour of the day is always foamy. So the way you get around this is you take a pitcher and you jam it with ice and you fill it with water, even more like it's overflowing with ice and water. So it's an ice bath. And you go down the bar and pretend there's 2 faucets. You bury the 2 faucets in this ice bath and you hold it there for 30 to 45 seconds. Then you move along, you do the next 2 and the next 2 and the next 2. And what the ice bath does is it chills down the stainless steel faucet. So when you turn the tap on, you got cold beer, cold faucet. It pours liquid right from ounce 1. There's none of this. You just and you see it all the time too. I bet anything. I go into a bar or restaurant at 12:30 and I look down the spill tray and there's all these glasses with like 4 ounces of beer just sitting under the taps. I'm like, no, this is what you got to do. You do it 10 minutes before open. And you can do it 10 minutes before your night shift too, just to chill them down again if they haven't been used in a while. But it saves, like we've done math with our clients. It saves them $2 to $3 grand a year in spilt beer. But that's my number one tip that I'll share with you. Usually we keep that close to the chest, but that's a great one.
That's an awesome tip. Greatly appreciate you sharing that one. So, couple final thoughts. I think it's absolutely crucial for a venue to, ensure their beer program is complementing the food program. Obviously to help elevate that guest experience. So what is your personal favorite food and beer pairing?
Whatever's in front of me. Man, you know what? There's so many. If I had to pick one, I love hoppy beer, right? So not crazy hoppy. I'm not one of those guys, but it's more seasonal. But I'll drink an IPA or a session IPA pretty much anytime. That and really good old cheddar cheese is awesome, right? If I'm having a meal, maybe like a Chipotle mac and cheese, something like that, really hearty in the summertime, in the wintertime. Summer, it's something light, like it's, Rattlers are great. They're a little low alcohol, so you can drink a bunch. Right. There's, and especially the session IPAs are awesome. There's so many of those out now too. Sours are great. Fruity sour and cheesecake. Can't beat that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's so many options, and the great thing is there's really no bad pairing. There's some ones that make you turn your head a little bit, but yet it's live and experience and learn as you're going through. But yeah, it's whatever. My favorite beer is whatever's in front of me.
Yeah, that's a perfect answer, I think, right there. So, what's one bar that you can't wait to get back into to have that beer in front of you?
Oh man, there's I've got four close by to me that I love. The Owl and Firkin, great. It's the team are so friendly in there. I love them all, Candace and Ellen and everybody. Right around the corner from me, I've got two, the Oak and Bollocks. They're a great place to get a pint. 12, that restaurant I talked about, it's at Brock Street. It's a little higher end, but it's a fantastic place. The food's amazing and great place on a date or with some friends. Yeah, those are kind of the places I cannot wait to get back into. And I know when this ban gets lifted, I'm going to be spending a lot of money in restaurants and bars because I miss it so much.
Me both, yeah. So, I think everybody's got some great tips on how to elevate their draft beer program and their equipment today. This has been amazing. Thank you, Steve, for joining me today.
You're welcome.
Perfect. So where can everybody reach you if they want to, learn more about improving their beer program and their beer draft systems?
Yeah, for sure. So betterbeer.com is our site. There's a button on there. You can call us. There's a chat icon. Just select sales, which goes to me. Support goes to our support team. Steve at betterbeer.com. And any of the folks listening, they have a question or anything about their draft system, by all means, reach out. We don't charge for that stuff. It's especially right now, like, my goodness, it's everybody needs some help, and we're just happy to help out. And there's some bad advice out there. There really is. Like, somebody was saying, leave water in the lines. Like, you can't do that. So if you have questions or anything, just shoot me a quick email, steve@betterbeer.com. Happy to help out. Happy to give you our opinion. We don't sell equipment. We don't clean lines. We don't service equipment. So I'm not trying to get your business for any of that stuff. So happy to help, by all means.
Fantastic. This has been great. Thank you for listening to the Bar Hacks podcast. That's it for this episode. Make sure you subscribe on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play Music to stay up to date, or head over to Amazon.com to get your copy of Bar Hacks, the how-to on developing the fundamentals for an epic bar or restaurant. Until then, stay safe and healthy.
Cheers.